Hey, Matthias. What are we doing today?
What are we doing today? I'm drinking beer. What are you doing?
I am drinking a ton of water. I'm on like my third Nalgene today. I can't stay hydrated because I'm actually being active, and it's weird, and it's warm, and I'm sweating way too much. If for those of you interested in the sweat update, it's pretty bad out there. So
It's pretty bad out there.
yeah. I don't quite understand why I can sweat through every shirt doing nothing but writing, but it's pretty cool. I'm feeling like this is something I should just embrace.
That's a new you. You're getting older.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, exactly.
deal with it.
I'm gonna be sweaty guy. I'm gonna change my Twitter handle and everything. That's it.
That sounds gross. Well, I just came back from my first orientation run for our LBA race, Little Backyard Adventure. We've had 7-8 people out. We ran the course and gotten everybody super confused because it's a twisty loop through the forest and nobody knew what was going on. But everybody had fun, so that was super exciting. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I saw you post a couple pictures of that, and it looked awesome. I was happy to see people out there. I was doing my own run in our little neighborhood parks, and it was just like, it was nice to be out on the trails. It was that light mist, nothing really bad. It was just a day where you could be like, oh, I could explore forever. And, we have these areas that we can. So it's nice. I'm happy that people showed up to LBA, though.
Well, and, people really don't know those woods yet, right? I mean, everybody knows it as a city park and baseball fields and stuff, but people don't know or aren't familiar with that you can run in those woods and can really put a nice loop together. So I think it was fun to introduce people to those woods, that location, but also get them fired up about the race coming in August.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool to see that, and I was mad I couldn't go, but it is what it is. I'll join next week. So we're talking about these nice trails that we're doing and getting people out and running, easy manageable loops. And it's kind of cool today. We have a special guest who also has participated in what appears to be online as a pretty easy race. And
everybody has an opinion, and it seems to be manageable and doable.
Yeah. So I've teed you up. So how about you introduce our guest tonight?
Yes, absolutely. I am super stoked to have Maggie Guterl on the line with us. Maggie, say hi to our listeners.
Hello. I love the pronunciation of my last name. It was like better than I could have said
it. I know, right? It's difficult for me trying to should I switch into German accent or should I try to pronounce it American? And then I usually tip over my tongue.
You're just right in the middle somewhere, so it's just great.
Exactly. Great. So give us a quick rundown. You're calling in from Colorado, correct?
Yes, from Durango, Colorado, Tailwind headquarters. So I started with them in February. I'm still sort of in Pennsylvania. I'm flying back tomorrow to finish up the move, and I'll be back here permanently in 2 weeks.
That's super exciting. But
yeah, I'm stoked.
So, welcome to Colorado, I guess. But the reason why we have you on is because you just did madness last weekend.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about the drive from the madness to Durango in like 2 days? Or
sure.
Are you talking about the Barkley?
Let's talk about the Barkley. You failed like everyone all the time. Yeah. You did Barkley. I mean, there is so much to unpack. And to be quite honest, Doug and I are very honored to have a Barkley attempter online because, I don't know, from afar away, it seems insanity. So, I mean, for our listeners, we're not even introducing what Barkley is. You guys, if you listen to our podcast and you don't know what Barkley Marathons is, then let me Google that for you. Do your homework, people. Stop the podcast right now, figure it out, and then come back. So this is not your first, and there's so much to unpack. This is not your first attempt, correct?
Yeah, second attempt.
This is your second attempt. So I guess you need to go back a little bit and share your story. How did you hear about Barkley, get introduced to it, and what made you then? I mean, it's one thing to hear about it and sort of be fascinated, like thousands of people online, but how did you then make that decision to actually say, okay, this is something that I want to attempt?
Yeah. Well, I kind of first heard about it from Matt Mahoney's website. In like 2011 when I started kind of researching ultras, and I didn't know any ultra runners, and it started to intrigue me because there was a 24-hour race where I lived in Philadelphia around an 8.5-mile loop. It was in the middle of July, and that's where I'd run all the time. So, a couple of years I remember seeing these people running, and I would do this midnight run. It was like it was a one loop race that took place at midnight in the midst of this 24-hour race. And so that's around when I started to get curious about ultras. And I had heard of this, just doing the internet stalking that we do. And there wasn't a documentary yet, and there wasn't like a whole lot on it. So the Matt Mahoney website is where, that was like the one true source of like Barkley stuff, like the most concentrated Barkley knowledge you could get at the time. I mean, it's still a great source of information if you're like curious about history, the Barkley, whatever. So at that point I was naive enough to be like, oh, I should try this. And and then you do more and more ultras and realize, oh, there's no way I can do that. That is so over my ability. Like there's no way. And so like that wasn't even a thought. And then it started to creep back into my head, kind of like, well, maybe I could do this as a big challenge. And like, let's see, I did the Barkley Fall Classic in 2015, one of those years. And after finishing that, I was like, oh, there's no way I could do 5 loops. Mm-hmm. But then I got the information from someone, and I kind of held on to it for a couple of years because I was like, wow, this is going to be clear my schedule. I have to focus on this. And I kind of had this goal to go for a golden ticket to get into Western States. And that's kind of around the same time because I chose Georgia Death Race as my race. So that goal took me away from the Barkley for a little bit. And then once I was done with Western States, kind of, I was like, okay, that's cool. The race is great. But I don't know, there's something really
stirring,
alluring about the impossible, or like being the first woman to ever finish it. And so I applied in let's see, what year is this? So 2018 I got in. That was my first year. Mm-hmm. That was last year. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know. And I learned a ton. And every year I figured it was a project. I went in expecting like you have to go in and kind of be like, I'm going to do 5 loops. You have to train like you're going to do 5 loops. You have to bring enough stuff for 5 loops. Like, I mean, that's at least my strategy. Obviously I understand the likelihood of that. So I'm not saying this for like hubris or like overconfidence. It's just, that's, if you want to do that, you have to at least be prepared. So every year I go home with a ton of food apparently and a whole lot of clean clothes. But yeah, and I did that again this year. I mean, long story short, and then we could kind of like hash out different things or whatever. But it's kind of sucks because like I just didn't feel like I was myself that day. So after 5 hours, I mean, it was a pretty hot, and that first hot spring day always gets to me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I just felt no energy. I kind of think maybe it was the move and the new job and everything, just kind of like the stress of life. It's really hard to kind of like, set it up to have a successful race. I thought that I would be fine, but, so maybe that affected me. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, you have like a low moment there. You don't have time to like have a 9-hour low moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's no way to recover really, right? I mean, you're so much under the gun because every second is precious.
Yeah. I mean, even if I felt bad for an hour, I probably would have been okay. It just, I didn't recover. So
you said you heard about it many years ago. I got introduced to through that New York Times article that came out a few years ago. That was before Netflix documentary and stuff. And I remember reading that article, and it was a New York Times article. So it was written for giving the history of, the prison break and all of this piece and stuff.
Right.
And it was written in a way that I walked away from it saying, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like this idea of like trying to push yourself to that level is so pointless that I cannot even remotely consider it. And then you watch a documentary and then you get, I've ran a couple of Gary Robinson's races, so you get to sort of introduced to the personal aspect of it. So you all of a sudden get to know people who are actually really invested into this, and you kind of hear their stories and their motivation behind it. And so it starts to grow on you objectively. Subjectively, I still think it's crazy, but at least objectively, I can understand why people invest so much in it. So what is it? I mean, just the first woman sounds that sounds, I don't know. I mean, it would be huge, but then there's more. But what else is there that intrigues you to a race that is so unique? Because there are a lot of tough races out there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it forces you to learn, well, for me, a new skill, navigation. And I love maps. So, it's fun to just kind of stare at them and look at the topography and like all the different, features. And then there's so many every year. Well, this is my second year, but this year I felt like, last year I was like, oh, I understand the course. Like, I don't remember it all, but like I can shoot a bearing and, I should be able to get around. Like I did okay. And then this year it's more like, okay, how can I fine tune that? And like, Guillaume, who did a fun run and he did awesome. He said like, obviously you don't have time to waste, and obviously the climbs you're going to be hiking up, and we can all, gain fitness, do as much for it as possible. But it's such an art to be able to pick up very good line down that's efficient, because that's where you're going to be running. That's the only time you can run is when you're running down these like off trail things. I mean, there's a couple like Jeep roads or little trails you can run on, but you're definitely bombing down these hills. And if you go like too far off, or you hit like a cliff or a bunch of rocks, you got to go around, it's wasting time. And if you think about, there's like, I don't know, say 14 major downhills, like you're just wasting like maybe, two couple minutes here and there. That's like 30 minutes a loop or something. So it's like, it's kind of cool. There's just so much to it.
How much does the course change from year over year?
Well, it changed. There's a couple major changes this year. But I don't know. Laz said every 10 years we have major changes, but I don't think it's really followed that timeline. He does what he wants, but I mean, there was only tweaks here and there for the last, like, I don't know how many years, but I know the last 3 or 4 were pretty similar. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why everyone kind of like, because the runners this year, every year they're strong, but I mean, I think that it was an exceptional group of runners that are pretty well known, that have like a pretty good resume. Like, I don't know how to say his name, right? That was kind of the discussion of the weekend, was how do we say Carl's name? Carl.
Oh, yeah.
Carl, the Belgian guy with the FKT for the
the Belgian guy. He's the Belgian guy. Shame.
He's the guy that went the farthest of anyone. It was his first time there, but everyone, they have these like crazy resumes, and everyone's like mass finish. It's like, no, I don't think it'll ever be a mass finish, but with the major changes, Laz says every time this happens, we make a major change, there are no finishers. He's like, that's why I predicted there would be no finishers, and there weren't. And he's like, then they get it, and everyone's like, is this finishable? Because there's this new hill, and I only experienced it going down, but I was like, oh my gosh, on the third loop going up, this is a mile, and it's like straight up. It's insane. Wow. And it's called the meat grinder. Yeah. And like, I heard it's like, I don't know. Like I talked to Jamel, who got to the counterclockwise loop on the third loop, and he said it's just brutal. But Laz says like people figure it out, and then there'll be a finisher. Like people figure out how to beat the course.
Go ahead, Doug.
So when you are given the course map, especially your first year, what was that moment like when all of a sudden it becomes a reality of, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I have to figure this out. I listened to another podcast that you talked about last year's run, and you guys kind of had a good teamwork structure going on, and you helped each other out. But that minute you get the map and your first look at it, like, what is that like as it becomes a reality?
Well, I mean, my first year was really stressful because you do your homework and you try to figure out where the books are, but you don't actually know. Like, you've never actually seen a map.
Yeah.
You kind of understand like bits and pieces of the directions. What you do when you check in, you get your written directions first. Then whenever he feels like it, he puts out a master map and you can copy onto your own map. So everyone's like huddled around this map trying to copy it frantically. And last year he did it pretty late. So we were still trying to like laminate our maps, like, you packing tape it or whatever. Or if you're John Kelly, you came with a waterproof printed map that was already marked up. But yeah, I mean, the tape worked fine. Like, so yeah, this year I kind of knew the directions. So once we got our written directions, we knew what was different because you could just read through and be like, oh, okay. Like, and he added a book, and these are the two things that are different.
Nice. And so so you guys weren't like super excited about the new 3D map that was supposedly there?
Oh yeah, no,
or
that's
did that
cool.
help?
Yeah, it wasn't like a map of the course, but yeah, it was like a 3D topo model thing of Frozen Head. It was huge. It was really cool. Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, what surprised me was that John. I mean, it didn't surprise me when you saw John Kelly's updates on Twitter. He's going through a big move too, and he's distracted. I think when you said you're wondering how much it affected you last 2 years ago, I had a big moved my entire family 2 weeks before a big race, and I felt it in my bones too, the distraction, everything. So I think it plays a big role. But John Kelly got every crown on Strava of every segment at Frozen Head, and he is not able to navigate that course fast enough that he can. I mean, not effortlessly, but he at least can make good time that he has a potential chance on doing it. What makes? I mean, would going out in the summertime to Frozen Head and training out there, would that help? I mean, this is for us as armchair fans, right? This is what I'm wondering about.
John Kelly, he had time. He had time to continue and to do a lot more than he did. He was just unmotivated to go on, and his head wasn't in it. We kind of talked. I mean, I shared a campsite with him, and I kind of woke up at around like right before daylight because I heard his van the next over. He was talking with his crew, and I mean, later I talked about it. He says, "Do you think the stress of moving and all like affected you? Like, do you think that's possible?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That's what I was telling him." I'm like, "It does affect you." That's why I think he finished 2 loops and realized, okay, I have like to move a family to the UK. Yeah. Maybe I'll just not, because he knows more than anyone what it takes to finish 3 more loops.
Right.
And he's like, I don't have it in me, like just mentally or whatever. Yeah. As for going there to train in the summer, I mean, yeah, that terrain, any terrain similar to that would be perfect. Obviously you can only train on the trail there, so you can't really check out, like, you can't ever perfect your line going down certain hills or whatever. I have only been there one time when there's like green trees, and that was for the Barkley Fall Classic. But I just think it'd be more useful, like, just to get your bearings there if you go when there's no leaves, which is what it is when the Barkley goes on.
Right. That's a good point.
because it looks totally different. If you think about your like local trail, well, I don't know, Washington's sometimes pretty similar, but like in the East Coast is very different in all the seasons.
Yeah, we've been laughing. We did a huge run when you guys were out there of a whole like 13 and a half on some easy to follow trails. And we were kind of laughing about how the undergrowth here, we don't even know if it would be possible to have a race not on a trail. It'd just be next to impossible because we just have complete undergrowth. There's no way when you're talking about running down these hills and able to get a stride just down a hill, if there's not a trail there, we can't do that here. And I was, and I was wondering, like, since you've done a lot of races out there and you're moving to Colorado, have you done anything out here? Do you have any Pacific Northwest running experience? Maybe not even races, just exploring around.
Yeah. Well, my brother lives in Portland, Oregon, and I have friends in Seattle, and I've done Gorge's Waterfall. And yeah, I mean, it's just really different. I mean, the stuff here in Colorado, there's a hill out, our backyard. And, I went out there and kind of went up the hill, down the ravine, like up the hill. And you definitely have to zigzag a lot. And there's like these spiky, spiny bushes or whatever. So it's just all different, I guess, you know. But yeah, there's places in Pennsylvania where the bushes are so overgrown, like mountain laurel and like rhododendron type things, that it's so thick, like bushwhacking through that would take forever.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think a lot of people who are kind of getting into the race for the first time in the last couple of years and following along online maybe don't realize what the terrain is like or what you guys are actually running on, and running maybe a very loose term at times. Like how do you just mentally prepare to know that it's going to be this, you know, that challenging? I mean, you did it that first year and you trained for it, but you know, what were the differences between year 1 and 2 to just mentally say, okay, this time, here's what I'm going to do better? Like, was it all just training and practicing, or were there actual mental exercises that you went through of like, okay, and you know, almost running through the course in your head?
Yeah. I mean, knowing the course helped, you know, obviously we could go back to the park and just kind of like run the trails and just remember like, oh, here's where you turn off, or like, you know, and just kind of like keep the map in mind and be able to, while you're not racing through the woods and like, well, you know, you've only just got the map, spend a whole year just looking like, okay, there's a confluence of these two creeks here. And you know that if you're between them, then you're good or whatever. And I mean, where I live in Pennsylvania is like pretty similar terrain to there. So going off trail, I think just helps just skill wise to kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's just a good exercise and trying to pick a good line down certain things, and, you know, just to practice running off trail down wherever you're allowed to, like certain places you can't. But it's just a lot of, I think, I mean, obviously it's important to be able to go to terrain where you can run fast and go uphill. But then I think it's also important to get that like bushwhacking off trail experience, you know?
Yeah, talk a little bit more about your training. What did your practical training look like in terms of miles and vert? How much, what's a training block look like? When did you start really like diving into this?
Well, so last year I kept very close track of all the vert, because I had certain numbers I wanted to get hit. And I had never kept track of vert before, so I thought it would be cool. And it was a fun game to be like, this is my goal this week. This is my goal for overall. And I didn't do that this year because it was a little bit, hectic with, you know, looking for jobs, starting a job, traveling, getting ready to move. So I did, you know, I kind of knew, I had my same like little treadmill workouts where, you know, you do, 45 minutes on an incline. I used to have this Nordic track incline trainer, which I gave to a friend because I didn't want to move it cross country. We've already moved it so many times. There's plenty of hills around here, I think. So Yeah, so it'd be that. I mean, I still did speed work because you still need speed. Obviously with all the vert, you're going to get a bit slower, but you also have to, your body has to be able to handle that, that steepness. And, last year I did a ton of upper body stuff because you're using poles and you know, there's a lot of times you got to pull yourself up. Because of time, that's one thing I slacked on was the upper body, and I felt it. My arms were so tired. My arms weren't even tired remotely. Like my legs were tired after the second loop we did last year. Overall, it was 32 hours of being out there, which wasn't fast enough to have that second loop count. But my arms were totally fine. My shoulders were fine. I mean, and we used our arms because it was muddy last year. So we used the poles like ice picks and then you would like dig them in and then kind of walk up. And, I was fine. And this year I just like didn't even want to hold the poles. And I have these like, you know, all the trekking poles are really light. So, that was one thing I won't slack on again, but, yeah, I mean, you have to just be really well-rounded. Like everything has to be like, you know, the volume, I never really hit over 100 miles. I didn't do that last year. But, I don't know. I'm kind of wanting to see if I can handle more volume once I get used to the altitude and living out here. I think it might be just like a fun challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. So that means that it's really a focused training more so than an insane amount, of time spent out there, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was definitely broken up. So it would be like, say, like a tempo run, some tempo trail run. And then like in the evening, it will be incline for like 45 minutes or an hour on the, you know, and then like speed work. And then you would have like, I tried to do more yoga and stuff this year, which I think helped because I was having some hip issues after Bigs. I did one of Laz's race, that last man standing race in October. And then I went and did the Desert Solstice, the 24-hour, and that didn't go well because it was a bit soon after Bigs. So that's another thing is I had to spend a bit more time recovering through December and January, but instead of ramping up my training, which is what last year I started in December and just, you know, really building. But this year I had to spend a bit more time recovering from the winter events. So yeah. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to Bigs, but I won't have anything in December. Yeah.
So the challenge of the race itself is one thing that's fascinating. It's drawing you in, draws people in, but it's also the community of runners and supporters at the trailhead at Frozen Head State Park. Talk a little bit, especially for the people who are not too familiar and are not following every tweet. Talk a little bit about what it feels like to be in camp and to share this time. I mean, you know, you as a runner, you hope that you spend most of your time out on the trail, but obviously you spend plenty of time with other people as well. And that's what draws lots of people in and is unique.
Yeah, no, it's really true. It's funny because like these people you meet they're just regular people, but they're in books you read and articles you read, and then you get to know them, and it's just fun. And yeah, like last year after we finished, we left right away, and I was kind of bummed because I didn't get to spend time in camp. But this year, you know, it's kind of like you've been talking to these people all year, and you're excited to see them. And yeah, it sucked you only did one loop, but I did get to spend time with people. Laz is actually a really nice guy, and he's actually really funny. And he definitely cracks himself up. I love talking to his wife, Sandra. She's like, I didn't ask her about this, but she volunteered it. Like, she said, like, he doesn't even tell her, you know, obviously, if you know anything about Barkley, we don't know the start time until 1 hour before he blows his conch, and that notifies us it's about to start. He doesn't even tell Sandra, his wife, when it's going to start. So she's trying to go to bed the night before. She's like, Laz, do I have time to sleep? And waiting to see what his reaction will be to see if he can go to sleep and like, you know, just relax and have a good night. and so, you know, he doesn't tell anyone except for Raw Dog and him. I think decide the time right before they leave this year. So they've already decided when it's going to start the year following.
That's interesting. I was going to
Yeah.
ask that next, if he is like super spontaneous or
Right.
if he has this sort of planned out.
Yeah, it plans it out because that way, if it's foggy and rainy and miserable, he has already decided, and that's when it starts. Like, so, I mean, he started it about the same time as last year. So, yeah.
Which means
yeah,
the rain and coldness came in through the night when you
right.
were. Oh man.
I think everyone was hoping for like a super early start this year, and I don't know, maybe people would have got a little bit farther. I don't know, but it's hard to start in the dark as well, especially on a new course.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, whatever. There's advantages and disadvantages to all the starts, and we spend hours. I mean, and once you get into Barkley, it's like just into it, not like into the race. I mean, once the people who are like really into Barkley, I mean, you can spend hours talking about every little detail. Like, we spent a lot of time, way too much time. Every time we said we'll stop speculating about the course changes, we would get back into it. I mean, we all had dinner a bunch of us had dinner at John Kelly's house the couple of nights before, and his parents live in Wartburg, and they're great people, and his dad brought out all these cool old maps, and there we go, start talking about different ways that Laz could drop us down and bring us around and what he might do. And it's like nonstop. So yeah, I mean, you also, I think, I mean, if you want to do well at Barkley, or even if you want to like finish a lap, I mean, you have to be into it. You have to be like passionate about it and like want to learn everything you can about it. Or you're just not gonna do that well, I don't think.
It seems that the atmosphere at the camp is one where when you do know everybody, it seems like a very fun but also nerve-wracking time. Once you're checked in and you're just waiting for the start of the race, how much anticipation and kind of guessing of, oh, I bet you it starts this in the next hour or two. You know, is there any sort of, I don't want to say side wagering because no one's really betting on that, but is there any guessing of, okay, it's going to start at this time, so I'm going to be ready, and people, you know, start spreading those theories and everybody's kind of talking?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much control we have over it, so everyone kind of mostly takes it with a grain of salt and doesn't like get too up in arms about it, or like, you know, whatever, stressed. You go to bed ready. Your stuff is ready. But yeah, I mean, we definitely overheard different things, and we're like, okay, we think it's going to be a noon start or a late day start is what we thought, and we were kind of right. But like different things we overheard led us to believe that, and then we're like, or it could be a midnight start. So it was either midnight or not, or like a noon start. And when it didn't happen at midnight, we're like, everyone was like, okay. But like, I don't know, I slept pretty good both years. Like, I was like, I can't control it. I'll wake up when I wake up. I'm ready to go. So like, I was lucky to, you know, I woke up a lot, but like, still pretty good night's sleep for like before a race, especially when you didn't know when it was going to start. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. So I shared a site, like I said, with John Kelly, and like, he's super relaxed. And I think that helped. And again, just kind of like having been there. 'Cause I think last year, the stress of the whole, which, you know, you try to prepare yourself for the course and running it and all that, but I underestimated the amount of stress that happens right before the race. And I think I got really worked up, and it wasn't a fun experience. Yeah. So, but it's fun when you get to enjoy camp though, you know, and just like, you know, catch up with people, and it's not a race where you are hoping someone else fails and you do the best. Like, I mean, if you're with someone and it's dark, that person's like a good ally.
Yeah.
You know? Obviously if that person's slowing you down, you have to leave them or they're going to leave you. That's understood. But like, you know, you're trying to beat the course, like, and you're trying to do it together. And yeah, obviously, I mean, there's people like, if you see in the documentary, Brett Mons trying to like, he's racing it, trying to beat the, you know, but he's a different beast,
Right.
Yeah. trying to beat Jared and get the course record. And like, I don't know. I think at that point, I'd just be like, just get me there, just finish.
I mean, as ultra runners, we all in it because we're sort of fascinated with how much we are able to accomplish as human beings, how much we're able to endure suffering and keep pushing ourselves and sort of break through to this limit. How much, what's the, I mean, is it just one level up? I mean, how would you describe the difference in experience in human, I don't know, pain that you have to push yourself through compared to a normal 100-miler? I don't know if that's
yeah, no, I mean, I just listening to John Kelly talk and just knowing that he, you know, what it took to finish 5 laps, you know. I mean, I was dreading the 3rd lap, the counterclockwise loop, just because coming up that hill and then all these different parts of it. I mean, one loop is like 100-miler, I guess. Like, I don't know, maybe 2. It depends on how good you feel. I mean, you know.
I mean, that's what the photo that we saw of John Kelly finishing when he looks like a ghost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I know. And I mean, I can't say like, you know, I can't, it's funny because it's like more this year than ever. Like, I'm like, I'm going to keep trying. I think it can be done, but, it definitely makes you doubt yourself when you're out there. Like, can I do this? Like, I don't know. And then last year I didn't have any doubts. Like, and maybe it's because I felt so terrible this year where I was like, and I was trying to tell myself like, okay, well, this isn't your normal self. Like, yes, this self you are right now can't finish 5 loops, but keep working and like, you know, maybe I can get there. But I don't know. That's kind of what's so cool about this goal. I really have no idea if I can do it, but it's fun to keep trying.
So it really is. It's just challenging all the way around, it seems like. But there has to be, well, there doesn't have to be. But is there a moment of levity out on the trail? Are there experiences out on these loops in either year you've done it where you're full of enjoyment of the process, where it really is all just like, it doesn't matter what's going on, I'm actually here and it's great?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I mean, like you go by these things, and it's cool the more you read the history. There's a really good article posted, was it Ultra Running History, or I gotta find it. I don't know if you guys read it. It was like all about Brushy Mountain prison and like a long history on it. And it was like, and then it was cool too, getting the history from John Kelly's parents. His mom was telling me, obviously the prison was put there because the coal miners in Wartburg unionized. So the coal miners didn't want to deal with that. So they were like, build a prison here and we'll make them work in the coal mines. And that's what happened. And it was like terrible conditions. And, you know, there's a couple prison breaks where, and the prison was like all wooden. You know, this is back, I can't tell you the year, but, yeah, so they would work in these hillsides and these mines, and these prisoners found like a soft coal, I don't know what they call it, but they dug through it out the side of the mountain and escaped through there. And then it had like, they kind of ran down the different prisoners that went missing. It was maybe 20, and, you know, so-and-so got this far and these people got this far. These people were never found. And like, I mean, it's crazy. And then they tore it down and built like a stone one, which is kind of like what's the structure that stands today. But it was terrible conditions and all that. And like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, and you get to go through the prison. That's kind of where you're like, it's not hard to navigate. It's just the iconic part of Barkley where you're like, oh, I'm walking through this prison and I'm between these massive hills, and like, it's just really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That definitely seems like one of those places that you get it all kind of soaks in, you know, having only seen pictures and the documentaries and stuff. It just seems like that would be a point of just exhale and take it in and then continue on. Along the same route, how are the books? Is there a frustration when you see the titles like the documentary leads you to believe, or is it mainly like, I found the book, where's my page, let's move on?
Yeah, it's like, well, it's the latter. I didn't look at any of the titles this year. I just kind of pulled them out. I remember last year, like, kind of noticing a couple. And then also we did our counterclockwise lap last year. There was like a group of 5 of us, and we went a bit slower because we knew we weren't going to make it. So, you know, we had time to like, haha, title.
Oh, yeah.
And this year I was just in such a like world of misery that I was just like, page. Plus, I did most of I started out with my buddy Jody Eisner. He's from Nova Scotia, and he's done a fun run. He's been to Barkley at least 4 times. And so we agreed to run together, and everything was going great. We didn't really have too many issues, a couple time wasters, but we were doing really well. And then by the top corner, like garden spot area, I started to just feel the heat or something wasn't right. And Jody pulled away, and he's like, "You doing all right?" I said, "Just go." And at that point we had met up with another pair of people that I know. And our friend Steve Slavy ended up going with Jody, and I ended up with Zach Gingrich the rest of the lap. And Zach has a great resume. He's more of a road runner. He's won Badwater. And they were kind of joking. Laz is calling him the Mike Wardian of this year, because like Mike Wardian's done it, you know, twice, and I don't think he's gotten a lap. So Zach was just, you know, he was in a world of hurt, and I was in a world of hurt, and I was like, let's get this done. I know where to go. Just come with me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we'd get to a book, and he'd be like, "What's your page?" and rip a page out. So I didn't really look at the books. I know at the tower, he's like, "Okay, we should just stop at the tower." I'm like, "No, we're going to finish this lap." I'm like, "You're going to finish. We have time to finish it." I was like, "You have to go through the prison." I think that was like my thing. I was like, "This is iconic. You have to at least go through the prison." And after that, you only have 2 more climbs. So had I known how bad the climbs were going to be for us, he might have just stopped at the tower. But like, it was awful. I mean, I don't think I've ever sat down I definitely lay down during a 100-miler, but we found I shouldn't tell you this, but there's like a log halfway up the one climb, and I was just like, I have to sit. I feel like everything is like, it was awful. I was like, I can't believe we're sitting down in the middle of the Barkley on a log.
I'm sure you're not the first person.
Yeah.
or
I
the
saw
last.
a lot of people around us, like just sitting, and I'm like, okay, we're in this back end of I was the last official finisher of the first loop, so it's okay.
This is the perfect moment to take a quick break and thank our sponsor for this week's episode. We're excited to have Heritage Bank back. Visit heritagebanknwblog.com for all the info. The folks at Heritage Bank believe that relationships are at the heart of good business. There's dozens of branches all over Washington State. There's one close to you, and they invite you to just sit down with them and find a way of working together to find some solutions for all of your unique needs. Money is a tricky thing, and there are lots of questions around loans and mortgages and just basic business banking. Heritage has all the modern conveniences that you expect, online banking and the apps and all of those features, but it's all rolled into that personal experience. There are no robots working there. If you call them, they will answer, a person will answer. And if you walk into a branch, of heritage, then you'll be able to chat with a friendly face that knows what's going on, can direct you in the right direction, and help you out with your questions. Heritage Bank has been part of the community for many years, and they invite you to get to know them. So stop in at a branch at Heritage Bank and see what they're all about. Visit heritagebanknwblog.com to learn more. And thanks, Heritage Bank, for sponsoring this week's episode. Now, back to the show. Doug, I hope you queued up another question while I was chatting.
I do. I was going to transition to kind of this post race. I mean, I have a million questions about the Barkley, and it's a little intimidating to talk to somebody who's done it, because it's such an iconic race. But to kind of go away from that, you do other things. You have a lot of other aspects of your life that are going for you, including an upcoming race. What made you decide to do a race right after Barkley?
What race am I doing?
I thought you were going to be doing the Boston Marathon.
Oh no, I'm going there for work.
Oh, you're going there. Oh,
nope.
Okay, I missed it.
You know what?
I missed
John Kelly did do that after his finish.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's what I was curious about.
That sounds like a really bad idea.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I'd rather run the race than go to the expo and stand for 4 days. That's actually worse.
That's very true.
It'll be fun though. We're going to be tailwinds at the expo. And so me and Jenny, she's one of the co-founders who I think was on your podcast, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, she's great. So if you guys are going to the Boston Marathon, come find us and chat.
I know,
we'll be there.
The problem is I don't do road races, so
yeah, I don't anymore either.
or I'm too slow to even consider. Actually here in Olympia we have a road marathon, a capital city marathon, that is a Boston qualifier, and so it's kind of possible for me in theory to not have to even travel that far. But
I did a road marathon in Washington called the Dog Lake Marathon. It was like 2,000 feet downhill on a road.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems fast.
Just bomb down the hill and that's
that's what you do.
Awesome.
I mean, you go like through these little weird dirt roads and then pop back out on the road. But yeah, it's overall, you're just like you PR the 5K, the first 5K.
Nice. But connecting to what Doug was saying, so how long do you think recoveries? I mean, you only did one loop at the Barkley. I mean, come on. No, but I mean, did you clear your calendar for the rest of the year in anticipation that you would go further and you would be in a world of hurt? I mean, Gary said, Robbins said that after he did it the first time and did like 4 loops, he for 6 months was not himself.
Yeah. Obviously I could always play it by ear, but yeah, just with the move to altitude, that also had a big thing. And so I don't have anything serious signed up. I signed up for this thing in Silverton called the John Carcass 50K. And it's inevitable that I will DNF that because I don't know, James Varner, from Rain Shadow Running.
Yeah.
I think he took it over.
Yep.
So I don't know what he's smoking, but 19,000 feet and the cutoff is now 14 hours. I think I saw. I have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that no one's ever done that. So I got to check. And I talked Howie Stern into running it with me. He lives in Silverton, and he's one of the awesome photographers that covered the Barkley. And so he's my new training buddy. And so we'll try that, I guess. But I'm also kind of, I don't know, I kind of want to do I signed up for Plane 100, and I'm going to keep that on the back burner. I would like to do it, but it's a bit close to Biggs, and honestly, I just really want to do really well at Biggs. Mm-hmm. I really want to win.
Nice.
But so do a lot of people. So I want to not go in tired. And I think that the September 14th race before October 19th is a little close. So I'm maybe thinking of and see if I can run Bighorn 100. Tailwind's a sponsor of that race, and it's in June. And I think it would just be fun. I think I would just go for a finish and try to do the best I can. Cause I don't know, I don't want to pressure myself into like having to do like ton of quality workouts, just moving to altitude. I have a friend who moved from Pennsylvania to work with Zach Miller at bar camp. And he had a rough time kind of adjusting, and that's 10,000 feet at bar camp. Mm-hmm. And he was training for Georgia Death Race, and it didn't go well. And his recovery was, you know, you don't sleep well. And plus the bar camp job's very physically demanding. But I'm going to try to learn from his mistake and just kind of like, you know, I mean, our house is at 7.5. Yeah. So it's not as high, but it's still a big change. I've been at sea level my whole life. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I split my time. It's between sea level and about 5,000 feet, and just bouncing back and forth. I'm like, what is going on? My body.
Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, that extra 2 is going to be like to get up to 7 is it's. Mm-hmm. I think. I mean, you're obviously in great shape. I think you'll be able to handle, you know, average runs without noticing anything. But yeah, it's that extended time out where it's just like, okay, this is rough. I now feel everything. Like I've decided to do just a ridge run, only about like 8 or 10 miles at 12, 13. And it was just like, nope, I have nothing. This is weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how to function with this. And that's something where, you know, to get back to Barkley, the elevation gain itself is insane. I mean, that's like, do you do extra leg workouts, or is it only just running upper body strength? Like,
I do. Like, yeah. Yep. You want your quad. I mean, the quads are like, they're going to get trashed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you want to do extra leg, and, I don't know, you know, it's kind of fun. Durango is just like, everyone does multiple activities. Mm-hmm. It was kind of cool. Cause today, you know, Jeff from Tailwind was like, hey, Tuesdays, Thursdays is yoga. And he's getting ready to go to yoga at like 4:30 or something. And, you know, our marketing director is like, yeah, we go to the Vault. Like, this is a CrossFit gym here. And everyone's got like all these cool activities. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do stuff other than run, you know? Like I do my own strength workouts, but it'll be fun to kind of do it as like do someone else's strength workout, I guess.
Yeah.
Instead of my own like box lunges and step ups or whatever. It'll be more, maybe spice it up, I think is what I'm looking for.
So let's talk for 5 minutes about your observation experience of all the armchair fans and quarterbacks that are on Twitter discussing Barkley and determining what, you know, who's going to finish and what it's going to take to finish. I mean, you know, reception is fairly poor at the trailhead at Frozen Head, the campground area. Do you check in? Are you aware what's going on, or do you just completely shut yourself off and are completely off social media for that time? How do you experience that?
Yeah, I really got to know Keith Dunn over these last couple years, but particularly hung out with him a lot this year. And, yeah, he'll say little things like what people are saying and, you know, roll his eyes or whatever. But, I don't pay too much attention to it. It doesn't, I mean, people, you know, the people they know what, you know, I think that people shouldn't discount the people that do show up every year, the people that are working to finish. Mm-hmm. People are quick to name like really good runners that could finish Barkley, and that's great. But like, well, if they want to apply and they want to put the work in for the years that it takes, and like, you know, there's not like a recipe for it. You know, John Kelly was a pretty much unknown guy, and so was John Fegavaresi. And so I think it's achievable for like, obviously they're both exceptional athletes. But I mean, it's achievable. You know,
I mean, really no well-known athlete who's a professional trail runner who goes on the UTMB type circuit has even ever really done well at Barkley or even attempted it, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of runners that have like come, like Hal Corners tried it and Carl Meltzer and like,
okay.
Like sometimes they do a loop or 2 loops or whatever, and they're like, this is not for me, and they don't want to come back. Like,
Yeah.
and then there's like, so this guy, I probably never would have seen, on the loop had I felt like myself and been moving faster. We're not the same speed. But Ed Thomas is like really like gritty, badass guy that's just slower, whatever, but he's tough and he's good at navigation. And he ran out on his second loop with like 30 seconds to spare in like a trash bag poncho and ran up Bird Mountain, like, and that's like super admirable. And maybe for Ed, it wasn't like about the finish. It's just go until literally you can't. He like everyone else that kind of went out on the second loop, but it's like kind of late, came back hypothermic and didn't quite make it, past like 5 books even. I think he turned around after 3. And I mean, and Laz has explained this. He could take all the best runners on paper that apply. He could, but then he said part of it is the park. Like, not that they say you have to pick slow runners to come like run this, but like he says, if he picked the same like top runners who could keep learning it, and then eventually they would all get to 4 and 5 laps. Like, that's a lot of people on that course, and that's part of the whole thing was like, there's people. He wants it achievable. He wants people to be able to experience it, whether not this because like you can do 5 laps. Like, Ed can come run it because he deserves it. He earned it. Like, maybe he won't ever make it to 4 laps. Like, but, yeah, so it's just kind of a numbers game too.
Yeah, no, that's a good explanation though. What do you think does it gonna take to finish? I mean,
for
aside
me
from
or for anyone.
Well, perhaps both, right? I mean, aside from a perfect storm of like, everything coming together beautifully, but I mean, from somebody who is actually, because I think we as the fans who read the stories or whatever, right? We all speculate and we think what it would take, but from somebody who's actually been on the course and is determined to go back, right? I mean, you certainly have, not necessarily checklists, but well, more than we do. And what it takes, what you think, like, what the recipe is, right?
I don't know that I know the whole recipe, but I learn new things every year. And I mean, obviously, and this is something people always say, you really have to push yourself the first lap. You have to go. John Kelly described it as, be willing to blow up, like kind of what Guillaume did. Like, he was trashed by the 3rd lap, but he learned a lot. I mean, every lap, even if you're not going to finish, like even if it's 3 laps, okay, you didn't get 5, you're learning something. So they're valuable. They're valuable for next year. I mean, I would have gone out on a 2nd lap had I had anything left. Like, I was just so depleted. And I also have a hard time not completing something. So I knew that if I went on the next lap, like I would have had to drag my wrecked carcass through like 24 hours of just climbing these hills. And I didn't know if I could physically do it. At this point now, from like what I know, I would have come back hypothermic like everyone else. Yeah. I wouldn't have had time to change my wet clothes underneath. So I would have just thrown over a bunch of clothes, and it's just a recipe for like hypothermia, especially being calorie depleted and not having eaten like for a long time.
Yeah. And sleep deprived. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't actually sleep deprived at that point. And the first night would have been okay, I think.
Yeah.
Because of the cushy start we got. But yeah, I mean, so that first lap, and everyone's, they have Barkley statisticians who tell you this is the recipe, but
right.
A sub 10 hour lap is what you need to do in order to even have hope for a fun run.
Okay.
So that's the number I would have in my mind. Tomo, the Japanese guy, who came in with Johan and Jamil as right under the wire. He came in just under 10 hours and finished a fun run. 10 hours for his first loop.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one little tiny part of it. And I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's true though. I was talking to this Finnish guy that's done Barkley like 4 times. And for me, who's not probably one of the fastest runners in the world or anything, a lot of it is the perfect storm, like what you said. Bad weather, fog is your enemy. I mean, anything that slows you down is just bad. And obviously you can't just be like, oh, it's too foggy. That's going to happen. You're going to experience bad weather, but you do need all the external help you can get, I think.
I mean, you work for Tailwind, but you can't just go off of Tailwind for 60 hours, right?
I don't know, and I don't think I'm going to try it. Sorry, Jenny and Jeff.
I know, right? I mean, they might disagree with you.
I know. I don't know. They can come and try it, but I think you just kind of need to eat something different too. Right. But my plan was to use mostly Tailwind the first loop. I made a mistake and really mixed it a little bit concentrated, and I kind of screwed up my electrolytes, which is pretty funny because I work for Tailwind. So, Art from R&D gave me like a weird look when I told him that, but, I don't know. I was like, whatever. I also, I wanted to keep refilling the Tailwind or, replenishing it, but there's only a couple water drops where you can fill your bladder. So in between, I would use Endurance Tap, these little maple syrup gels, and you have like a couple things. I would use like honey stinger chews or whatever. And then between laps, you would want to eat. I had 8 cups of rice prepared apparently. And I'm like, wait, think about that now. I'm like, why do they make 8 cups of rice? That's 2 cups of rice per transition. Like, I'm not going to ever eat 2 cups of rice in camp.
That seems like a lot.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I just made it all. So, but I think that it's important to treat that first lap like it's a race, and at least with Tailwind, I'll put it in the bladder. Like a lot of guys are like, oh, it's an extra weight, but I don't want to stop. And I don't want to get dropped if I'm like working to follow someone, cause nobody waits for you, like I said. So, a bladder full of Tailwind is the way to go for me to get around there fast. So the body has to be on board as well, though.
Yeah.
And so I asked this question, and I feel like Matthias just set me up for it, but I asked this question of everybody because I'm kind of fascinated with it. But as you're out there, either last year or this year, did you have any food cravings, or were you too busy? And if you had food cravings, like what were they? Were there any strange ones, or was it just like, I want this is my comfort food?
No, I didn't. I didn't want to eat at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I was having trouble just wanting food at all. So I just pretty much gave that up after Rat Jaw. Like maybe before Rat Jaw. Actually, yes, no, it was a climb. It was one of the new climbs. It was a new old climb. And, I think I tried to eat, the only food I had left was like some, honey stinger waffles. And I was like gagging. So, I gave up on eating altogether. I think I refilled my Tailwind replenishment at the top of the tower because there's a water drop there. But and I didn't pee for like 16 hours.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's it. Just seems like it's so challenging on the body. I mean, you read about and hear about people's hallucinations, people just waking up somewhere, and it's just. It seems like your body just goes through so much on that, especially as soon as you get past a couple loops. So, I mean,
I didn't, that was the most, I got a full night's sleep. I kind of went to bed by like 2 a.m. and so I didn't experience that. I experienced that more on my drive because after Wartburg, I left Wartburg. I thought I could make it to Memphis because after I saw Guillaume finish his fun run, I was like, all right, now I'm leaving for real. It was like, sorry, Jamila and Johan and Tomo. I'll find out on Twitter if you made it. So, I made it to Nashville and I crashed. And then some guy how they have those doors that open to the hotel, like, so you could have a suite. So you can hear through that. This guy had his alarm going off for hours.
Oh.
It was really like 7 minutes straight. So I finally got up and I like kicked the door, and I think he like got up and then was like showering and fumbling around. I don't know. And it was like 5 a.m. and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I was like, I'll just start driving. So I drove from Nashville to Amarillo. And it was awful. I took a nap in a rest stop in Arkansas because I drank coffee, I drank Red Bull, and I was chewing military energy gum, and none of it was working. So I just take a nap. I was like, is this worse than the lap that I did? And I was like, yes, it is. This is worse.
Wow. And so now you're in Colorado, though. You're able to just kind of relax for a few days, right?
Yep. That meant I only had to drive like 7 or 8 hours the next day.
Nice.
Yeah. And so here I am. And then I fly back, and then me and my boyfriend each drive a truck we have a pickup truck, and then we have the moving truck, and we get to do that drive again. Well, I get to do it again.
Oh, man.
From Pennsylvania take a different route at least. You go through Kansas.
Ooh. You guys going to stop at Sunflower Mountain and stand at the highest point there?
Oh, we should. Is that on the main whatever? What is the route that we would go?
I think it's a slight detour. I've written about it a bunch of times, and every time somebody says they're going to Kansas, it's what I bring up. It's kind of just my go-to non-Wizard of Oz reference for Kansas.
Well, we are trying to do every high point, not like seriously. But
I would stop. It's on private property that the guy lets people go out to, and it's basically just on the edge of the state as it's gaining an elevation, and you can't really tell. And there's a bunch of sunflowers there, and that's
okay.
It. Yeah.
That's like the Delaware one. It's like a corner of a neighborhood.
I think
we
one
live
in
pretty
Florida,
close to Delaware. Yep.
Yeah, the one in Florida is an overpass or something. So
yeah, Florida's like the lowest high point.
Yeah.
I think. We wanted to go to Missouri, so the high point there, but it was a little bit out of the way. That looks a little more prettier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good goal, is to get the random high points. I think that's actually really fun.
Like Denali.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, that's the one that's not very random.
No, I don't think we'll do that.
That seems a little serious.
I mean, I might do it. I don't know if my boyfriend is ever going to want to do that. Maybe our dog won't come. We like to bring the dog.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I think if you get your permit from the National Park Services, they're probably going to give you a stink eye if you say, oh, and bring my dog up Denali.
Yeah, he'll have a little snowsuit.
Four little ice axes. It'll be adorable.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I mean, it's funny that we're talking about mountaineering, because I think that's one of the interesting things about the Barkley, that it is so brutally challenging, to the point that, so few finishers have ever been over the course of so many years, but it's not dangerous. I mean, you can't compare it to K2, climbing K2, right? I mean, there's something very accessible about it as a goal that you're setting for yourself, for your life, right? I mean, if this is your single focus that you have, that you are sort of obsessing over, with you already having this commitment of wanting to go back in the next year, then it's great, because it's something that isn't, as much as it might be all consuming from a training, and as you're saying, you could talk about it for days. It's not something that will actually kill you. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could die, but yeah, I mean, Laz at least tries to choose people he thinks are capable enough to, as he calls it, self-extract. And here's 100%. Barkley has 100% self-extraction rate. So.
Right. No, exactly. Right. And that's, that's a difference from a percentage game point of view, from a statistics point of view, than if you would be insanely obsessed with climbing a crazy mountain up in the Himalayas, especially something that has not been done before. Right. I mean, I think that's always something very tantalizing on one side, but on the other side, always insanely dangerous to approach something. Once it's done, then it becomes a different element, right? Once you know you can, I don't know, free climb El Capitan or something like that, then it becomes a little bit more doable. But if you approach a project with the idea of, I don't know if that is actually humanly possible, and if I failed and I die at the Barkley, you don't fail. You come back and you get tapped out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make it any less hard, but it's definitely
Absolutely.
doable.
No, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from the physical and mental challenge, but at least your loved ones, I suppose, they don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to, say goodbye every March when you're driving to Tennessee. So I think that overall that helps in putting it into perspective in some respect, right? Which
Yeah, I think you do have to have some kind of little bit of a sense of humor about the whole thing too, because it's kind of funny to Laz in a way, like he gets a kick out of how difficult some of this is and like how much people struggle. So yeah.
Definitely. I mean, he as a character is a whole nother sort of kind of aspect of this race, right? You say that you're fighting the course and the course won, but in some regards, it's a little bit last one, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, he is the race. I mean, it's not. I mean, there's some race directors that like someone else could take it over and it would be the same, or you would just maybe not notice too many things. But this is so much Laz that he is the Barkley. Like it's kind of crazy.
No, absolutely.
He's also obviously, I mean, I think this is pretty common knowledge now, but he is really smart. And he knows a lot about Frozen Head and he loves the outdoors in the woods. And like, he was explaining to us about the microclimate of Frozen Head and why it's so crazy. Like everyone was looking at the weather in Mortberg and we were doing it too. And we're like, oh, great. Looks like a great day on Saturday. And like, the thing is, look how much the temperature dropped on Sunday. And I knew it was going to drop, but like, most people won't be out the second night. That's something, those temperature swings are really difficult on your physiology. And like, so Gavin Woody, guy who's done the Iditarod and Arrowhead 135, like he knows how to do cold, and he came back hypothermic, and he's like, this has never happened to me. And it's because you were sweating one day and then you go up and the next day, like literally 12 hours later is like a 60-degree temperature drop and you're wet. So like the microclimate of Frozen Head, like Laz is explaining how like those mountains are the first thing that it hits, like the weather or whatever. So they kind of come up over it and they eddy down into these like valleys. And that's why the tips and ridges of these mountains are like, there's like crazy snow and sleet and frost and whatever. And then Wartburg on the other side is like sunny and 15 degrees warmer,
Yeah, that's the funny thing that I've learned now over the years by just following from afar, that people always look do the weather report by typing in Frozen Head into wonderground.com or something, and they're like, oh, the weather looks good, and I'm like, it's not like, going to be good. I know that.
We're like, can we get a weather station on top of Frozen Head, like mountain?
Yeah, exactly.
There should just be one, and then we can like, at least predict it a little better.
Start understanding at least how serious the changes will be.
Yeah.
Cool. Doug, do you have anything else? This was incredible.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I feel like I could ask you a million questions. The one that I do have is, what is a question that you're just tired of hearing about the Barkley? Like, you've done it a couple times now. Is there something that you're just like, okay, I'm tired of answering this question, or is it still exciting to talk about?
I don't think there's any question I'm tired of hearing. I don't know. It just gets like, and I don't think it has really affected me this year. But when kind of last year they called it the Year of the Woman, because they had 8 women running, and I don't know, this year there were 6, so it's really not that much of a difference.
Yeah.
And then they're all really excellent runners, and I plan to come back, and Amelia Boone, who crewed me, she plans on coming back, and like, I don't know, this is my life, like, race goal now, I don't really have too much of an interest in like going after another goal right now. Maybe something else will pique my interest, and this will fade, but I doubt it. Yeah, I mean, I think if you fail and you don't do well, people are ready to move on to the next person, and who can maybe be the hope to finish.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, that's it. It bothered me last year, and it doesn't really bother me this year, because like then I'll just kind of silently go and just keep working. I know people want Courtney to run, and obviously, and I've talked to her about it. She knows that it takes your sole focus, and right now she's got this amazing opportunity to run all over the world, so she's doing that. And maybe she will be able to do it in the first year, the second year, her third year, whatever. But I'm going to keep trying, and maybe I'll be the first person, but maybe I won't be. So I don't know. It's just kind of, people just kind of like, name people who like what it takes to finish. And I don't know. I mean, it's just a cool experience. Like, these people try, like, they put so much work into it. The people who put the race on, like Laz and all his friends, and the people who show up year after year, it's so much training and homework and whatever. So
you have to apply every year new, right?
Yeah. Nobody, even if you have a guarantee, like even Johan, who won Bigs, he still had to correctly apply, I guess, to Barkley.
That's funny. So you have to every year come up with a different story of why you're allowed to run.
Yes. And I'm already thinking of mine, because it better be a good one this year.
It better be a good one. That's amazing. I read John Kelly's, and he published his, and I was surprised how short it was.
Yeah. I'm working on mine. I don't. It's kind of hard to start it. It won't be long, because I didn't spend a ton of time out there. But yeah, I think I kind of trying to figure out what went wrong first. But maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things. But yeah, I'm definitely going to apply again, and maybe I hope to win Bigs, and then it won't be a nerve-wracking time waiting for that condolence email.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. Cool. You are on Mountain Time, so you are an hour ahead of us. So I think we need to let you go. Maggie, It was absolutely incredible to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. You're going to be super busy the next few weeks with traveling all over, so we'll let you go. Before we let you go, why don't you plug some links, URLs, where people should follow you, reach out to you, website, Instagram, Twitter, what have you.
Okay. Let's see. My Instagram is at Magatron Runs, and my blog is www.magatron.com.
That's an amazing name for a blog.
Yeah, my friend came up with it. It just stuck. I didn't make it up myself.
I've got a 13-year-old
For the
son.
record.
I've got a 13-year-old son who is all about Transformers and stuff. So sounds very impressive.
Yeah. He can be impressed by my name.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, those two things. I mean, really, the Instagram's more like the running thing. Sometimes I post pictures of my dog. And then eventually I'll have my blog up. I haven't really done a great job of keeping it up, but hopefully once I get settled and move and then everything is all back, then I can write more about my adventures, because I like doing it. So, Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. This is really awesome.
Very cool.
I just want to thank you for it. It's always nice to hear people that are so involved in a project that that the way they talk about it isn't just, talking about why they love it, but they do so in a way that inspires other people to kind of find those things. And I feel like the way you talked about Barkley today was just above and beyond what I was expecting, and I had high expectations, no pressure, but it was great to hear that and hear that passion in people's voices that kind of exemplify the trail running community and what everybody's about. So, to have you on here, thank you very much. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Barkley people are super passionate. So
amazing. Thank you also to Heritage Bank for sponsoring this week's episode. And with that, we are saying goodbye and good night.
See ya.
See ya.